Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And today we have another bonus episode where we are talking about Heartstopper season 2. We did season 1 recap, so now we're doing season 2. I'll put a link down to that first season 1 recap if you want to check it out. This is an 8-episode series on Netflix and a very sweet, lovely LGBTQ positive series, teen drama. And I am film critic Rachel Wagner, and Larry is here.
Hi, thanks for
How's
having
it
me back.
Yeah.
Good.
Welcome back to Hallmarkies podcast. I don't think we've had you on since last Heartstopper.
Yeah, it's been
Am
a
I right?
while. So
Yeah,
I'm excited to come on back.
yeah. So for people that might be new to you, why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, so I'm Larry from the YouTube channel Chili Boy Productions and also on X, Twitter, whatever it is now, Chili Boy YT. And I do movie reviews and reactions. I'm reacting or still editing. It's like a editing nightmare doing reactions to Netflix shows when they dump them all at the same time. You're just like constantly round the clock trying to edit these things up. But I do reactions to TV and movies, and this is one of the series I'm reacting to. I'll also be reacting to Red, White, and Royal Blue, which is kind of in the same vein, same little umbrella here.
Mm-hmm. And we'll had so this is posting on Friday. We'll just had our recap that I did with Joe from Guide the Movies on Red, White, and Royal Blue. It was a big favorite of both of ours, so you can check that out. And yeah, Heartstopper. I mean, would you say it's atypical of the kind of stuff that you typically watch?
So I think it's a little bit sweeter. It doesn't have that bite that I like a little extra bite. And I would say this season gets a little bit darker than the first season. It's a little bit more heavy, but it's still overall, I'd say the majority of the season is very cute and just like a hug as you're watching. And I don't watch many things that feel like a hug and enjoy them. So yes.
Yeah. Why do you think that this works where maybe some other stuff in that tone doesn't work for you?
I think that it hits that like really genuine note. I think the actors do a really good job of just feeling like these kids, these characters, everyone is pretty age appropriate for these roles. They're not like 30-year-olds playing high schoolers. And they all feel like teens and friends. And most of the drama, I will say, every now and then there feels like maybe there's one or two plot lines that are a little bit dramatic, but most of the drama just kind of feels like normal teen anxiety drama about like your relationship or, your classmates thinking a certain way of you. So it feels a lot more just naturally like that than I think a lot of teen shows, because they really like to get heavy in on some of this like super drama and like really dramatic, and and Heartstopper mostly steers clear of a lot of those tropes.
Yeah, I was just barely talking about Red, White, and Royal Blue, and I think the tricky thing about any rom-com-ish kind of a thing is because romance is inherently corny. It's inherently sweet and cheesy, and if you listen to anybody tell their story, it's gonna be like, oh, that was corny. That's the way it is, And so what you have to do is you have to write it in a way that feels authentic to the characters, and that you're like, oh yay, and I think that this does. It feels, even though if it is on the squeaky side, and there were a few things that I had issues with this season, but I think it does feel authentic, and so it works.
Yeah, I love our lead characters.
Yeah, and I agree, the casting is very strong, and a lot of these actors had not done anything else, were new.
Yeah, and I think this season does a really good job of the side characters, like probably better mostly than the first season even does. It really built up Nick and Charlie, and this season we still focus on them. It's not like we just throw our main love interest to the side and move to the next. No, they're still like our central focus, but they do a good job of fleshing them out, and all of these actors are definitely they're up to the task for the
Yeah.
most part to deliver what they need to give.
Hmm. Would you say that this was a stronger season or maybe not as strong as season one? What do you think?
I don't know. They're pretty on par for me. I think they're both right about the same. I overall thought they were both really strong with maybe one or two minor issues. So I think it's just right on par with season one for me. Kept up that quality.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I was one of the frustrating things that I feel about a lot of teen movies and shows, which I hate the whole like sullen, miserable teen trope that like the whale was not for me. I hated that movie so much. And the teenager was just the epitome of what I hate of these like just she's a serial killer in training. I mean, just absolutely atrocious human being. And I think it robs teens of their humanity when they're only portrayed as these like miserable, like, and I get it, it is a tough time, but I hate that portrayal. And you certainly don't get that here, which I appreciate. But on the other hand, in this show, I mean, every teen is in like a dramatic relationship. It would be nice if there was a couple characters that were just like hanging out teens, that we just got to know their story, because that's the way 99% of teens are. And a couple of years ago at our local library, they were doing some kind of event on Valentine's Day, and it for the teens, and it said, hey, it was like, teens, are you down on love? And there was like an anti-Valentine's Day party for teens, and I'm like, why are teens down on love? You're a teenager. Like, what? And I think it's partly because they see things like this and they think, I'm not in some kind of compelling, intense relationship as a 16-year-old. There's something wrong with me, when like almost nobody is. And so that was the thing of this one, that like, I was just kind of like, maybe we need a couple of the sullen teens to round out this.
She's not sullen, but
Oh,
I guess Imogen is kind of just that for us right now. She's just the
yeah, I
one.
guess
She's
so.
trying to be in a relationship. She wants to be. She keeps going for it, and then it
Hmm.
keeps flopping. So
Yeah.
she's by herself,
I mean,
latching onto the group.
I had one friend in high school who was in a relationship, a dramatic relationship, I guess. And she ended up getting married to him, and they're still married to this day. And so they're amazing. But everybody else, we just kind of dated a little bit and hung out, and like, I didn't know
Well, I
anything
think they
else.
set up like Elle and Tao next season. I'd be very shocked if everything just goes smoothly there with this long
Yeah.
distance thing. So they kind of have them
Oh
set
yeah.
up to be maybe a little bit more of a tumultuous. And they were it was kind of fun to do a will they, won't they throughout season one. And we start off with a will they, won't
Hmm.
they, with some of the biggest, I mentioned it in my reaction. They looked like dolls in a playhouse at this movie theater. I don't know where they got these popcorn buckets and nachos and drinks. They were so big. And listen, I'll get a large.
Yeah.
I get the
Yeah.
large at the movie theater. But they go on this date in the third episode, and these popcorns are like as big as their entire torsos. They were huge.
Well, and I also felt like, and we'll talk more about this date, but I also felt like Tao, he cleaned up into Henry Golding. I swear, like, give him a haircut. And I mean, he was always cute, like, but he like really, really looked great.
The glow up of
That's
the
the
series.
glow up.
Oh, I was so happy. Okay, spoiler alert right here and now. I was also cheering in episode 3 when they gave Tao that haircut. Thank goodness. I
Yeah.
could not stand that little bob. Season 1, I was like losing my mind over these little like flipped out
Yeah.
moments at the front of his. I hated that
Well,
hair
I think they
so
did it on
much.
purpose because they were trying to make him kind of nerdy and whatever. And
I
because
hated
when he changed his hair, I was like, wow.
it. Okay.
That's what I thought, at least. I thought I
Yeah.
think he's a teenager, so it's
Yeah.
obviously not interesting to me.
No,
But
no.
like,
But yeah,
but
like
I just thought he looked so much more attractive.
a haircut can do
A lot.
wonders.
Yeah.
he was still rocking like high water pants and everything with that
Yeah.
new haircut, but he was like, okay, that was a definite glow up.
Yeah, it was so good.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
One of the things I think that was really well done in this season is sometimes it's sort of portrayed in media that you come out and that's it, and it's this experience, and maybe that's true for some people. But what I thought they did so well in this one was that kind of showing what a process this is for especially Nick. I mean, he has to come out again and again and again, and they have to come up as their relationship at a certain point. And he's like, there's so many different groups, whether it's the rugby players or his brother, you really felt for him that, gosh, they just got to keep reliving this trauma over and over and over again. And I don't know if I'd ever seen that experience, that unique experience, quite portrayed until this show.
Yeah, I really like what they did with Nick's character this season as well. I agree. I don't think we've really gotten, and especially in long form media, because you certainly, for a lot of people, that's definitely the case of like, okay, so you start with, you like your best friend, and then you go on to your parents, and then maybe your second parent because you're closer or feel like mom. Typically, I mean, let's be real. It's usually your mom that you're like feel comfortable starting with, and then you kind of work up to dad, and then it's like, okay, who at school can I tell? Can I not tell? It is usually, somewhat of a process that people go through. And I agree. I thought it was really well handled. Obviously, we opened the can of worms at the end of last season with his mom. And I'm so glad they she doesn't have a lot to do, but I'm glad they gave Olivia at least a little bit more screen time in season 2.
Yeah.
Because she's just so wonderful always. And I think that Kit Connor was probably my biggest improvement, like acting wise, from season 1 to season 2. I thought he's just able to portray like sadness in his face so well, like just listening to Charlie, like every time he just listens, he has just like the perfect sad eyes and sad little face. Even though I'm wondering what superhero role he's like trying out for, because he is he was already, fit in season 1, but I mean, he is like superhero fit in season 2 compared to like poor little Charlie is like still the exact same from season 1, and you've got like Nick over here is just humongous. But no, I agree with you. I think that was really well handled, and I think Charlie's end was actually really well handled as well, as like wanting to be supportive and knowing that it's a process and knowing, but also longing for like those moments when you go to Paris and you go to prom and you go to all these things. So like having that conflicting side to Charlie of like, I need to support him through this hard process, but also I just want to be able to kiss him on the Eiffel Tower, or I just want to be able to hold his hand through Paris, and we can't do that. So
well, especially because if you think of how much a part of telling their story social media is these days, that not being able to share this huge part of you, not only, with your friends, family, but also just like with the world. And there's a producer named Miranda Bailey who we become friends. She was on Hallmarkies podcast a couple of years ago. Anyway, we follow each other. She did the most beautiful essay about how social media is not for your friends, families. Social media is you getting a chance to share your story with the world and how you want to artistically express yourself. And I thought that was like, that's something I've always kind of felt, but never had just so beautifully expressed as she did. And obviously that's a somewhat idealistic kind of version, but I do think there's some truth to that like crafting this kind of image of what you want to say to the world is like is a powerful thing. And you see that especially in these first couple episodes where they're mainly texting and they're in that like the honeymoon stage of their relationship. You do kind of see that in the fact that he can't share it on social media and other things, that it's hard for him. It's a loss.
Yeah. I have to ask, I don't know, we're both in our 30s or so, and I don't know if this is the new kids thing. I know Snapchat was the way to communicate for a while.
Yeah.
Is Instagram DMs the way people communicate? Because I don't feel like they ever just text each other. They are always just DMing each other on Instagram. And I'm like, don't you have each other's phone number? Why is it DMs? Maybe I'm just old. I'm like an old.
I mean, I'm in my 40s, so.
Oh, there we go. I know. I was like, did she just turn 40 recently?
Yeah,
42.
I'm 42.
I'm years behind. Look at you, Rachel.
It's so funny because if you look at pictures from when I was like 17, 18, I said I was Eddie Bauer chic. I basically dressed like a 40-year-old when I was 17. So my whole life, everyone has always thought I was older than I am. And I feel like I'm finally reaching the point where like I look my age. Well, I'm like, okay. And I'm getting people that think I'm younger than I am, which is like, oh, this is a nice change.
Okay, we've finally gone over that lump on the hill. We're on the other side. Okay, that's what this feels like.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I was reading something a while back about how the effect of social media on teens, and you think about it, but it never really occurred to me that kids today, I always hate saying that, but kids today, they have to deal with the fact that their picture can and is being taken at any moment of any time of the day. Like how hard that would be. That and I do think after a while you just kind of accept it as, okay, this is just life, like like I remember when the movie The Duff came out, which is not like a great movie, but it's cute enough. And talk about a movie where they cast way too old actors to play the leads. But what was interesting to me in that movie is that there's a scene where she gets kind of not outed, but like disgraced or whatever to everybody in the school. And there's this thing. And what was interesting to me is that the attitude of the other students was like, it's no big deal. Everyone will forget. Just brush it off. Everyone has their turn of this happening, was kind of the attitude of the other students. And I have a sister that's 18 years younger than me. And I talked to her at the time and I was like, is that true? Do you just kind of like, yeah, it's your turn. And she was like, yeah, basically. I was like, wow. Because I remember when I was in high school, my best friend, this is the one who had the married the high school sweetheart. Okay. One day she walked through the senior hallway with her skirt tucked into her backpack, so showing it to everybody, all the seniors, and it was super embarrassing. But we all kind of laughed it off. But now that would be all over the internet. It would be so much worse. Than it was. Yeah, it was already bad. Yeah. It's tough, man. Yeah. It's tough. I don't envy the kids.
No, definitely not.
Mm-hmm. But so in this first episode, it's called Out, and Nick is struggling with his brother, who is very difficult, and the idea of coming out to Imogen. What do you think he particularly struggles with Imogen?
Oh, I did wonder. I don't know if it was maybe because she had like a crush on him season one,
Mhm.
like she was trying to like be with him, so he felt awkward about it. I think they fleshed them out a little bit more this season because I don't remember them mentioning like how long Nick and Imogen had like known each other
Mhm.
until this episode, and kind of I felt like a little bit of a retcon of how close they have always been to each other. But because I was like, oh, okay, I guess I didn't get that sense from season one, but maybe it's because I viewed her more as a nuisance. And when during this part of season one, I was like, move, Imogen, get out the way. But her character's definitely grown on me. I feel I'm like, no, I'm sorry I caught you discount rogue in season one, Imogen. But I think it's always it feels weird. Obviously, Imogen is that girl, and I've definitely known this girl too. She's a little bit of a stereotype, but a true one, if we're being real.
Yeah.
A girl who seems to just always have crushes on gay or bisexual men who do not reciprocate the feelings at all for her, but they're like her best friends, or they're like
Yeah.
someone she hangs out with a lot, so she gets crushes on them, and it's like, oh, girl. As soon as she said who her crush was this season, I was like, oh no, not again.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like it has to stem from that, and of course, if they do go back, then it's tough. Even if it's always that situation of like, there's people in your life where you feel like, and I don't think Nick feels this because Nick seems pretty oblivious to anybody like being able to figure out anything or like have any sort of inkling to anything.
Yeah.
But there's always like people that you're like, they kind of probably have to know, right? Like,
Mhm.
but you still like struggle, like actually Red, White, and Blue kind of mentioned it really well. Of like, I wasn't scared of coming out to this other person because I thought they wouldn't like accept me or anything. It's just like, it's a change. Like something you
Yeah.
feel like something is going to change in this dynamic.
Well, and I think there's also maybe a little bit of a lack of trust with Imogen. I think there's a
Yes.
feeling that if he tells, it's almost like telling everyone if he tells her, like the whole school.
I mean, that's definitely a thing with her too. I did love the way they had her respond. Because it was just, I mean, she kind of blurted it out, but then also, I don't know, she used it as some sort of justification of why he didn't like her back. He was like, well, no, hold on. Oh, okay, never
Yeah.
mind then. Yeah, no, that's not why Imogen. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's a lot going on with her, and yeah, she is part of the rugby group specifically. Like, she's not a rugby player, but she was last season and this season always kind of hanging out with that
Yeah.
group.
Like a
Not
fan.
until this season she started integrating into this new Charlie group. She was never really part of like their.
Mhm.
Also, she said, she had that cringe line. They brought it up again in season one, where she runs up to like Darcy and Tara, and it's like, ah, to them, and they're like, oh, girl, what are you doing? So, Imogen some cringe in season one, that maybe she is a wild card. Like, is she going to accept you? She also is on that like popular fringe where you can feel she wants to be popular, and you always have to be a little bit weary. Like,
Did you have a group, a clique in high school that you were? Because I know you did band, right?
yeah, so our band group, a funny story there was basically divided in half in band. So I was co-drum major my senior year, and the other drum major was kind of the leader of the other group. So they always called it Larry's group. I was apparently the leader of my little group in the band. But we had, yeah, and I'm still friends with pretty much all of them to this day. So it's fun. We're still, I think our group chat was called Larry's group for a while.
Yeah, I was definitely a drama nerd. That was definitely my group. I was very active. I've always been super extroverted, and so I did tons of stuff. I was on swim team, I was in choir, But my main, if I was going to say a click, was the drama geeks, I guess, drama nerds. That's why I did really enjoy the theater camp. That was very funny
Yes.
to me. Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with Les Mis. I literally knew every line to the whole show. I mean, I always joke that if they needed a swing or understudy at any time, I could have gotten it. I knew
So
every
you weren't part of
line.
the production?
Yeah, I was obsessed. They had that 10-year anniversary concert that came out right around when I was in high school, right when I discovered it. And yeah, I would just watch it on like repeat over and over again. So I love that. I love that show. Like there's like I mean, everybody has formative media in their life. And for me, The Little Mermaid, 1989 was very formative. And then Clueless came out when I was a freshman in high school, and that was very, very iconic for me. And I think Clueless was actually the first time I'd ever seen anything with a gay character, with Christian. So it was actually pretty like impactful, you know, for me in that way. And I loved it, and I still love it to this day. And then Les Mis, that would have been like the most formative media for me growing up. And it's cute. You see with particularly with Elle and Tao, they're the characters that seem to have the most sort of personality as far as what they like and what they do, and we see him trying to kind of change what he likes for her because he's trying to impress her. All of that. I thought that Elle and Tao were
oblivious in that first episode. She
I
literally grabbed his face, like had her hand in his face, and he didn't get the message.
But he's so afraid that like starting a relationship, admitting that he has feelings will hurt their entire peer group. Because then if things don't go well, and then what's going to happen? And so I could understand. I felt like they were the big. I mean, I liked pretty much all of the pairings, but I thought they were the number one for me. I just loved everything with them. Was, I thought, really well done.
Yeah. And it starts right here in this first episode.
Yeah.
They're like, will they, won't they? And Ella's like, okay, then.
Yeah.
He rejected me when I put it pretty clearly on the table. So I'm done. Like, oh,
but
no.
then in the next episode, this is when we meet Nick's brother. Actually, it's in this episode. And he's the worst, terrible.
He's the worst.
And then I just loved when Tao tells Charlie, he's like, I was, and he's freaking out. It was so good.
So good. Such a good way to like end the episode. Also, can we just talk outside of Darcy's mom, who we meet at the end of this season? How just great the parents in the show are. I know a lot of people don't love Charlie's mom, but honestly, I appreciated her being here and because she's not like hateful. She doesn't like disapprove of Charlie or anything. He literally just isn't doing his homework, and she's being a mom, you know. Like,
I kind of appreciated that the parents weren't treating him any differently than any other relationship that was distracting him. It didn't matter to him, to them, that like they would have done that with any other relationship that was distracting their son from these tests, which looked like a nightmare. I asked Michelle, our co-host, she's from Scotland. I said, do you have to do it? And I guess it's a different test in Scotland than this GSEDs or whatever. And I'm like, oh, but she's like, they're brutal.
It gave me like flashbacks to, what was the stuff we used to have to do? I forget the standardized testing, but oh God, gave me flashbacks to standardized testing. And I'm like, no.
Like I'm like mildly dyslexic. And so like any kind of, like, I don't test well. I know the material usually, but I have a hard time, especially if it's like multiple choice, and I'm like, I don't know which one to pick. And I don't know. It's just not my strength. And so all of that kind of stuff is always the worst. I felt for him. I felt for them.
But I feel like
I agree on the parents.
But sometimes people are like, she wasn't all that, but I don't know. She wasn't not supportive of him. She just, I mean, he wasn't doing his work.
She treated him
So
like any other child, which is isn't that the end goal, that we
yeah.
want everybody to be treated equally?
And she
We
was
don't.
like, look, I get it. It's your first like boyfriend. You're
Yeah.
awestruck and all this, but
Yeah.
you got to turn that essay in and get your work done first. So until you do, you can't go. And I love that dad was like
You're grounded.
the soft one though. Like he was like on the front line, but then he was kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, we're going that far? A full band? And she's like, yes, a full band. Like so
I
liked
loved
them.
Tao's mom too.
Oh God,
She
love
was
Cal.
so great. Oh,
And that's part of what this season, what I found so special with Elle, is that she got to have the typical pretty girl moments this season, the rom-com girl moments. And I just think that's so special for this like POC trans girl to just be represented as the girl who gets her magic moment. She even gets later in the season the iconic prom moment where she comes down the stairs in her beautiful dress and she looks beautiful and her parents are
great.
there.
It was great.
And even here, like I really appreciate that they don't over dramatize everything. So like Tao's mom just loves Elle and loves her son being with his best friend. Like there's not this big deal made about it. There's nothing like she doesn't disapprove. No, she's just the best. I love Tao's mom.
Yeah, she was great. So then in the third episode is when we get this disastrous date. Because he's really trying to impress her. And he takes her to see Moonrise Kingdom, which he hates, which I would probably like pick something that that like you can tolerate, or that you like there's no reason to do something you absolutely hate. Like
be a movie
but it was
that you
so
both
cute.
like, right? Like I know it's her favorite, but there's got to be a movie that you both really like, right?
Yeah. So it was terrible, but it's so cute.
Ever.
It was really good.
Yeah. I mean, I was yelling, and it turned out to be right in the episode as I reacted. And they were like, he drew up this board. He like makes this Elle first date board, and it's like brainstorming. And of course, you have Isaac being like, take her to the bookstore. And like, no, Isaac, that's your first date, not ours. Thank you, sir. And they're like, the beach, and he's like, oh God, that's lame. No, you two do the beach. We're not doing the beach. God. But I was like yelling at the top of my lungs, take her to an art museum. Don't you have an art museum in this?
Yeah.
City? That is the perfect date. I think you'll appreciate it. And obviously she'll love it. And as we see, once they get to Paris, that was the right choice.
Yeah. We'd like to take a second and celebrate our sponsor of this episode of the podcast, Baker Bookhouse Publishing, and 3 of the recent releases that will be a perfect end to your summer reading fun. First up, The Secret to Happiness by Suzanne Woods Fisher. Callie Dixon sets her goals and reaches them. So how did this executive chef end up in a small ice cream shop on Cape Cod, sharing a room with her cousin and refusing to set foot in the kitchen? It will take the charm of a young boy and his quiet, steady father to help her find the answers and maybe the secret to happiness. Second, With Every Memory by Janine Roche. After a tragic accident robs her of the last 9 years of memories, Lori Mendenhall comes home to a family completely different than she remembers. As her memory returns and past secrets resurface, it will take all of them to repair what's been broken and find a new future together. Finally, Summer in the Spotlight by Liz Johnson. After a devastating hurricane on Prince Edward Island, Kelsey Ahern sets out to save her beloved community theater and her job. As she draws her friend Levi Ross into her plans for a benefit show, she discovers there's more to him than she expected, and that God's plan for their future are so much more important than the struggles of their past. You can pick up any of these books for 30% off at bakerbookhouse.com or use the affiliate link below. That's bakerbookhouse.com.
Yeah, I thought, and it's all, I feel like that's the thing when you're like converting from friends to trying to be in a relationship, is there's like this weird pressure of, okay, we have to be different, right? Like we're going to be in a relationship. We're not just friends anymore. What do we do? So you want to like adjust to being relationship and not just besties.
Yeah.
And it ruined it. Like, it's like, no, you two like each other based on who you are and being
Yeah.
friends. Just
Well,
do that.
that's what makes friends to lovers such a great trope.
Yeah.
Is that you're already invested in each other, but you're afraid that like, so it's just that it's like a bubbling pot, just like, oh, and then it overflows. It's so good. Oh, I mean, I know you're not big into the romances in general, but would you say, because there's like enemies to lovers, friends to lovers, there's like there's fake engagements. Do you have one that you think you in general like more than others? Fake relationships.
I generally do like a good enemy to lover if it's
Yeah.
done well.
Yeah.
That's the tricky one, is that it has to feel earned,
Yeah.
or like that's the one you have to earn the most, because I have to believe that, okay, where we really made the
Yeah.
jump, or there was this underlying like desire for each other this whole time or
Yeah.
something.
Well, I've said this about a million times on the podcast, but all of these enemies to lovers are usually trying to be Pride and Prejudice. But the thing that they don't or often miss about Pride and Prejudice is that Lizzie and Darcy are both beloved by the people in their lives. They just don't like each other. But like Darcy has no shortage of friends. His sister loves him. His people that work for him love him. Like Bingley loves him. And then Lizzie is everyone's favorite. So they're good people. They just don't like each other. And I think that is a big, because you don't want your romantic lead to end up with a terrible person.
Yeah.
And so these ones where you're just like, oh,
I know Rachel's favorite, we talked about it plenty on our side podcast. I know Rachel's favorite enemies to lovers is Cece Babcock and Niles in The Nanny.
Oh, I love though Fran and Maxwell. Oh, so good. So good. But you mentioned Isaac. I want to talk about that a little bit, because I had very mixed feelings about this storyline.
Okay.
So I admire them, and I like the fact that they tried to include an asexual character. But first of all, I feel like it's not really necessary for all teens to figure out what category they belong into. Like, it's okay to just, I guess, to be questioning. Maybe that's your category. But I feel like it puts a lot of pressure on teens. I got to figure this out, and so that I don't know. I feel like I wish they could have had a couple that were just like normal teens. Like, not that there's anything abnormal, but you know what I mean? Like, they all have this like really strong experience. But I felt like they didn't handle it very well. I felt like it was still like, this is really weird. And it was treated with this kind of, and it's interesting because I found an article that said the creator, Alice Oseman, that this was really coming from her experience, this particular. She wrote or in this article on Deadline says that she identifies herself as asexual and aromantic, someone who doesn't feel sexual attraction to anyone regardless of gender and doesn't feel romantic connections. And she said, I'm 28 now, and I didn't even really learn about these terms until I was at university. And honestly, I didn't really understand them until even later than that. I feel like asexuality and aromanticism are identities that are not known about by a lot of people. I wanted to bring that representation into the mainstream. And so I don't know, I still felt like the way they handled it was kind of, because everything else is done with such like love and acceptance, but I still felt like there was sort of a like, this is weird kind of a feeling to the portrayal of the character and the way that people responded to the character. And I don't know, I didn't feel like they nailed it for me. I didn't love that. I don't know, how did you feel?
I personally really liked Isaac's little journey this season. First of all, I was so happy he got a storyline this season because he was he was like the main person in the group. He wasn't in like stretches of episodes and just kind of was there. And we knew nothing about Isaac in season 1 other than he was their friend. So I was glad he took more of a front seat this season and actually got a storyline. And I do think, obviously I don't know how it feels to be asexual, clearly. That is not my lived experience at all. But I just imagine, I don't know, I thought they did a pretty good job personally of putting you in that shoes of like seeing everybody around you just like kissing and flocking to relationships, and you're like,
Yeah.
like I want that maybe. Like I don't know, I feel like I should want that, so let me experiment with this boy who likes me, and then when you don't like him back, you're kind of like, oh, okay, I don't know, I felt like he still was in the period of like, what's wrong with me? I feel like that's kind of what Isaac was feeling most of the season, of like, why am I not having these feelings as all my friends get like paired off and I'm just sitting here watching them, and
Yeah.
I
mean,
can't
I
relate
guess
to them.
especially in this reality where every teen has these intense relationships, because
Yeah.
in real life that hardly ever happens. And so I can especially understand why it would be upsetting, shocking.
Yeah, I feel like you would just be like, kind of like, what's going, like, okay, I want to be part of this too. Like, I want to be a part of what y'all are part of, but
Because
I don't.
asexual individuals, they have relationships,
Yeah.
and it's just not the same kind of attraction as other relationships. It's just different.
Yeah, and of course there's a lot to get into. So again, I think this season was more of a stepping stone for his character. By the end, he kind of understands it because of that like art exhibit. They have like a pride night at this school that Elle is about to be going to, so they have all of these like queer coded art pieces on display, and he finds one from an ace student who goes to that school, and he's like, what is this? Like, I don't understand what is all this about. And he kind of gives him the idea. So of course Isaac goes back to books because that's what he knows best, is books, and what he relates to the most are books. So I feel like he kind of, by the end of the season, is on a path of like understanding himself a little bit more. And so next season, I hope that opens the door to him being able to, one, express that to his friends, and why he got like so mad at them when they all were like, oh, you kidding? Like they were all like, because I think that's like a misstep in real life too, is people are like try to push like a relationship on you or push something on you. And as queer people, you should know that, because a lot of times, they're trying to push the opposite gender on you when you're a friend with them throughout, and you're like, shut up. No, like that's not what's happening. I don't want that. And I feel like, so next season, hopefully we get more of the like, so this is what I'm going through, and then we'll have more of the acceptance there. Because I feel like they just don't know. They don't know at all what's going on with Isaac.
Yeah. And she says in this article, Osmond says, if I'd seen asexual characters when I was a teenager, I would have understood that part of myself so much earlier, and it would have saved me a lot of anguish, pain, and confusion. So that's great. I mean, I'm happy that it's at least out there. Something is certainly, even if I didn't feel like it was perfect, something is certainly better than nothing.
Do you think the seasons are a little too short? Because I know the books are kind of short graphic novels.
Yeah.
But do you feel like the seasons are a little bit short? They're 8 episodes and they're all 30 minutes or less. So they're the quick little 8-episode nuggets of short, sitcoms level runtimes.
Yeah, it's so interesting because that's a very British thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, these short. Whereas, like, I mean, it used to have on American television, you used to easily have 22, 24 episodes.
This series would have been 20 episodes.
Yeah. And they're so stingy with their television over there in the UK. It was more. I could have definitely used more. I think I pretty much got everything that I needed, but yeah, I mean, especially if they're going to take so long in between seasons.
I know. I mean, I guess, not this is no kind of comment on me supporting, anti-SAG or anything, because obviously I heavily support both SAG and the WGA. But some of us that are fans of these international series, that's at least one like little nugget we have to the side, because they're not like under SAG. So they can, in some cases, they have to keep. Like I was reading about House of the Dragon, and they were like, they can't strike in solidarity with SAG under their own unions guidelines. So like they had to keep moving.
It's very confusing for me covering Hallmark, because most of the Hallmark actors aren't in SAG. Yeah. Most of them are in the Canadian union, ACTRA, I think it's called, and they have a valid contract. They are not striking ACTRA. Yeah. And so it makes things kind of confusing for me to be like, and most of the stuff is filmed in Canada, so it's not technically struck work. A lot of it has waivers for the American actors involved.
And then your second thing is animation, which also is under different contracts.
Yeah, which is also a different union. And so, I'm just like, well, I'm just making this up on the fly.
Yeah. But hopefully they can continue working for Heartstopper season 3, since it's a British production.
Yeah. But so then most of the rest of the season is from season 4 onward is in Paris. And so we're kind of back and forth, and this big trip to Paris. And we get a lots between Nick and Charlie back and forth, and who have they told, who have they not told. And we get an episode, this episode 5, where Charlie has a hickey on his neck.
Hickey gate.
I just love when he was like, I remember you gave it to me. Did I give it to you? Yes, you were present. Like
yeah.
It was good.
And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, you two are over. Sorry, Nick. The gig is up. It's over. You two aren't the best at keeping this under wraps anyway. To me, I was like, the whole school knows. Like, I don't know. The way y'all are playing this, the whole school knows at this point, Nick. I'm sorry. But especially there. I did think it was funny, and again, another relatable thing that everybody just assumed it was James, this new character we were introduced to on Isaac's storyline mainly. They were just basically like, he's the only other out gay kid. It must have been him who gave Charlie the hickey. And he's like, no, it wasn't me, I promise. Make sure Isaac knows it wasn't me.
What did you think of this whole plot of Charlie and the eating disorder thing?
So it was interesting. I thought it actually was handled pretty well. So they kind of so they start off by more showing us like weird moments of him, like with the candy bar, or him with he was just like holding cereal. We don't really see him eat much. And then we saw him start to lie about it. In episode 2, he lies to both Nick and then lies to his parents. So they kind of like slowly unveil it up to this. It must have been pretty dramatic to pass out. It's obviously a very tough subject. Any way you go with something like an eating disorder is going to be a tough thing to cover. I don't know how they're going to keep moving forward, because it's pretty clear that that's unresolved right now. These are the moments where, even in episode 1, where he gives that speech to his sister about protecting Nick, obviously you have that in your head maybe as a teenager, but there's a lot of heavy stuff, particularly with Charlie by the end of this season, that Nick is not equipped for. Like, Nick is not, can't help him with an eating disorder. You can help support him, but we need outside sources to come in to help with a lot of what Charlie specifically is dealing with.
I mean, I can't think of another plot line. I mean, I don't watch, I guess, a lot of teen shows, but that particularly has a male character with this. And it's not really for Charlie, it's not really about image. It's about control, I think. This is just like something, and that's the case a lot of times with people in eating disorders, that it's more about the control, that like that their life, in his life, is not in his control in so many ways, whether it's his parents, whether it's Nick, but what he eats, that is something he has 100% control over.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why. And so I thought it was a really interesting plot, and they didn't make they really didn't make anything this season like too melodramatic. Like it was all pretty
Yeah.
even keeled, I think, which
Yeah.
is good.
And of course, I
So,
love the way they use animation in the show
oh yeah,
to
yeah,
express internal feelings. So,
yeah.
like, seeing when he's kind of spiraling with the internal animations and stuff like that was really well done. So I agree with you.
Mhm.
I think they really balance it in something that could be just blown big and dramatic
Yeah.
and not feel, again, it felt more kind of genuine and authentic. He still didn't really want to talk about it until he was like coaxed out to bring it forth.
Mhm.
So yeah, I thought it was handled pretty well.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
Yeah. So then Tao and Elle come together in Paris in the gallery, like you said. They have their first kiss. It was really well done. So well handled after this terrible date. And I loved it. It was really fun.
Yeah, we get the Louvre. I was like, okay, of course, what better place for Elle?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were just so cute, running around, like seeing all the art. And again, the way the animation was used to kind of show her not being able to control those butterflies, like as she's just like seeing him do something, and they just naturally like the little butterflies come onto the screen. You're like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was so
girl,
cute.
see, just be yourselves.
We
What I
also,
loved about France was actually that teacher story.
yeah, I was gonna ask about that. So Mr. Farouk and Mr. Ajayi, I'm just trying to say his-
Ajayi, yeah.
Yeah, that was cute. It was fun.
I loved it. I loved Mr. Farouk. Obviously, he was kind of the crotchety character, kind of the grumpy character. So naturally, I loved him. But I thought it was so important to have that because obviously this is a teen show, but there's lots of people like us, adults who are watching, and lots of queer folks who feel a lot like Mr. Farouk did. Particularly, we didn't have these shows growing up. We had maybe an off character to the side or whatever in something, but they didn't really get their own full-fleshed stuff. And it certainly wasn't aimed at us, the queer content that there was. It was like Will and Grace for your parents, or like the L word or queer as folk, which is not child appropriate at all. So you were not,
I mean, like I said, the I mean, I grew up in a very strict traditional background, but that I didn't have anything until Clueless. That was the first, I think, the first gay character I ever experienced.
And so many kids, particularly around that age, it took a lot longer to kind of figure it out, to figure out the language, to really understand. So getting a character like Mr. Farouk, I thought was really great. I thought it was really special to just have that. I'm like, I never had those experiences.
Yeah.
And
it was fun. Like he would see them like kind of sneaking off and he's like, oh yeah, I remember that, kind of thing.
Yeah. And they had like a really cute chemistry together right from the start. I was like, wait a minute, are we gonna get a teacher romance? And we did.
We did.
And I loved it.
Yeah. So we also have this whole thing with Nick's father, and I did think it was really funny. Everyone's like, you speak French?
Everyone was shocked. I loved that joke of like, since when is your father French? And he's like, since his birth.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
And so we have this whole scene where he goes to dinner with this is episode 6, goes to dinner with his dad, brings Charlie. You've got the brother there, and he comes out to his dad and basically says, like, I don't really care what you think about me and my choices.
Yeah. And that's an interesting one too, particularly with kind of an absentee parent. You already have the added pressure of, so what we see with them is like you have this weird added pressure of wanting to be accepted by them as a kid. I don't know, you internalize so much of that, of like, I want them to love me because they don't pay attention to me.
Yeah.
They're not around. I don't know, they don't come see us. So you have this like attention that you want from that parent.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to be this perfect kid for them anyway. So then you add on this added pressure of like coming out to that parent, which seems weird because you shouldn't really care what they think. They haven't, like his mom says, he doesn't really deserve anything from you. What you want to tell him is what you want to tell him, but he hasn't earned really any of that. But you just feel so like, I don't know, pressure.
Yeah. Like, I was very lucky. I do not, I don't come from a broken home, so I didn't experience that. But
Yeah.
I can imagine that you almost create conversations with the person in your head, and that then it becomes sort of like this almost a pressure, because you've had this conversation in your head with this person. Like,
and then it never goes. Just like any time you
right.
create conversations, when you plan something out in your mind, they never respond how you expect, or they throw in weird stuff that you're like, oh,
yeah,
I gotta think on the fly. But I love that scene. Particularly, I loved Tori in that scene, in that entire episode. I love this juxtaposition of how to be a great older sibling versus how to be the worst older sibling in all of history. She just like grabs him and is like, don't you dare. Like, shut up right now. Like, she was ready to like rip James out of the room. Just being the worst at the table.
Yeah.
But then when she like overhears him talking about them and hears her talking about her brother specifically, and just boots his phone. I mean, I cheered. But
so the teens play Truth or Dare.
Oh.
And Spin the Bottle, like, combined. So that was I was always the worst for Truth or Dare. I had like, and to this day, like, I have nothing. Like, what? I have no truths that are interesting. I have no, like, what are you going to dare me to do? Like, I get the best thing that we could come up with when we were in high school, when we played Truth or Dare, is to get, and we thought it was absolutely hilarious at the time, to get the guys to buy tampons. That was the big dare. And now I'm just like, what? That's not even that big a deal. That's why.
Yeah.
But at the time, that was absolutely hilarious. We were in stitches.
Like, I would always win / lose. Never have I ever, because I've been boring pretty much my whole life. I haven't done anything, so I'm like sitting there with all 5 fingers still up. I'm like, nope, I haven't done that. I haven't done that. Yeah. Like, even the mundane stuff. Nope, I haven't done that. So yeah, I agree with you there.
We haven't really talked about Darcy and Tara at all.
But that Truth or Dare sequence obviously leads to Nick's big coming out. His big, he finally decides, he sees, and I thought it was kind of sweet too, because he kind of sees Charlie reeling because he doesn't know what to do. Like, he's stuck in a position. They dare him to frickin' kiss Ben. So he doesn't want to do that. He like refuses to do that. So he pivots to Truth, and of course, naturally, the thing everybody's been talking about. They're like, all right then, Truth, who gave you that hickey? So he's like, oh God, what do I do? I don't know what to do. Nick steps up in that moment to be like, all right, it was me. And of course, again, especially in this day and age, there are going to be idiots. There's always going to be idiots, no matter what it is, whether, especially in high school, if you dress a little bit weird, if you are part of a group that people don't like, no matter what your taste in music or shows. And of course, coming out, most people are going to be fine with it, especially in 2023. Most people are like, that's great. Yeah. But there's always going to be 1 or 2 who say something like ignorant or stupid or whatever. So by and large, though, his classmates obviously were like, oh, okay, great. We love that. And then we get like, I do love that they don't do full redemption arcs really for either of the bullies from last season. So Will, I really thought they were going to do it because he kind of started like defending them a little bit and being like nicer, and then he wants to get let into the party. They say no, and
Yeah, that was funny.
I was like, oh, nope, not today, Will. Maybe next season we'll let you back into the club, but right now you're not there.
Yeah.
And then Ben, I
It was
actually,
interesting. What did you think about his character?
so Ben was a hot mess for most of the season. I really did love his final scene though, because they empathized you to Ben in a relatable way. But didn't let him off the hook. Like what Charlie responded was still really powerful and accurate. Like, I understand it sucks when you feel this pressure, your parents won't accept you and you just know, so you can't live that out. But that never gives you the excuse to start abusing other people and lash and taking it out. And so often, unfortunately, that's how it manifests. So it turned into a, look, I hope you get happy. I hope you're able to live your life. Just not with me. Like,
I agree.
go find yourself, but leave me out of your self-discovery journey. And that's kind of how the audience, I feel like, kind of you leave with Ben of like, of course, I hope this kid gets to live his life and gets to be who he is and figures this out. And then of course that, you know, really symbolic animation of the rainbow wave just coming right up to him, and then he walks away as it's like reaching him was like a
and I'm really glad they didn't go like a darker path for Ben, you know, and make him like commit suicide or, you know, something like that. That would have been you know what I mean? Like they could have kind of gone that but there was that like, it was very well handled.
I thought they did a really good job with his character. I loved Imogen scene too. I mean, poor Ben.
I mean, if we think about like, for instance, Dear Evan Hansen, I mean, that's the way to do this bully plot line. Like, I mean, so it's that's the other way they could have gone, and they didn't. So
and it would have been horrible. Well, would have been like, but then we have Tara and Darcy, the other non-supportive parent plotline.
Yeah. So this is interesting because at the beginning, Charlie is very envious of Tara and Darcy and how open they are and comfortable in their relationship. And they seem to, does she just not have parents that are on social media or something? Because they seem to be open on social media, but her parents don't seem to know. Darcy's parents don't know.
I don't know if it's just like old people only use Facebook and maybe they don't post it to Facebook. I don't know.
Maybe. But yeah, I mean, even so, Tara doesn't realize that Darcy hasn't come out to her family. And so they act like they're super confident and open and everything, but there's this dark side. How did you feel about that whole arc through the season?
I thought their story, out of the couples, I think theirs was probably the weakest. Getting there. We're definitely going on a journey because I was like, oh, what's going on with Darcy? Like, obviously something isn't quite right with her. And we can't really figure it out like Tara because we don't know what's going on in her personal life. Also with her, I was super scared they went a really dark route in that finale too. I was like, uh-oh, like what did Darcy do? Like, I'm very nervous for where we're taking this. Turned out like her phone died because she was in the park. So I was like, whoo, okay. We didn't go dramatic, thank God.
Me too.
Like, oh gosh, what did she do? But at first I actually thought her mom, the way they unveiled it, because she's in that suit and her mom's like, no, you're not wearing that to prom. And I thought maybe her mom knew, but didn't want the public to know, like that parent that's kind of like feels that they're being supportive, like by just letting you live in their house still, but they don't really accept it. So they don't really accept you. So they do the bare minimum and keep it moving, but then it turns out, no, she doesn't know it all. So we were like, oh, okay. And she's very firm in her opinions towards it all. Um, yeah, I don't know. I thought it was handled okay. Just
Mhm.
the weakest of the relationship storylines for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, they had like pretty good chemistry, I think, the two
Yeah.
of them. But probably also maybe the weakest of the main couples. But I mean, it's good. And it's interesting what they learn about each other
Yeah.
throughout the course of the season. They
Yeah,
really do
that's
pack
another.
a lot into these little episodes.
I know. It's like little
Really a
30-minute
lot.
episodes. There's a lot going on each and every one. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Because
And we
that's
end
really
our
woo.
final episode is the prom. So we get all those things that we're talking about. It's called Perfect. And so we get a really lovely ending for, Charlie and Nick and Charlie saying that to Ben. And yeah, it's a if we weren't going to get any more, I wouldn't be. I mean, I want more,
Yeah.
but it was a pretty nice end to the
And
arc for the
yeah,
season.
I'm glad that Al and Town knew as well is going to that school, because it was very clear that that's what she needed to do. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we didn't get like a I'm staying behind because of this relationship type of situation. So we'll see what problems that brings up. Obviously, we're gonna have to deal with Darcy's mom. I'm
Mhm.
probably in season 3. We leave that pretty wide open with Darcy and Tara. We saw Tara's mom and Elle's parents kind of just briefly as well. So we saw everyone's parents this season.
Mhm.
In one capacity or another, the parents all popped up at one point. Um, I was joking because obviously we have like Mr. Farouk and Ajayi, but I was joking. We have the coach, we have the art teacher. Those are always the two
Mhm.
gay teachers,
Yeah.
particularly when the coach is a woman. You already know what the
Sure,
deal
sure.
is, and there she is. So I was like, who could Mr. Farouk teach? I was like, it either has to be like music or English. That's the next one that we go down. It's either one of the music categories or the English, and the English teacher usually subs in as like the drama coach. A lot of
Uh-huh.
times it's the English teacher. I was like, he doesn't seem musically inclined, so I'm leaning toward he has to be an English teacher at the school.
Yeah.
But I'm liking where we are with Charlie and Nick. Obviously, that heartbreaking scene where Charlie really opens up to Nick about everything and kind of finally gives him that moment was really cute and really well handled once again. So yeah, there's a lot still left on the table to explore in season 3. And I think as long as they handle it like they handled the touchier subjects this season, we'll be good. Because there's a lot of stuff, once again, that could obviously be blown out of proportion in a teen show and become really over dramatized. And hopefully they continue to I have faith. I have faith, since Alice has been really
Mhm.
the one working on it, that this
Mhm.
seems to be more her style. So
Mhm.
we'll see.
Well, and I think there's a ton of books that they still can
Yeah, they
go
just
off
released
of,
the
right?
5th one, and I heard the 5th one is like a book, like an actual, like a
Mhm.
full book rather than the smaller graphic
Yeah.
novels.
Well, I think the highlight for me was Tao and Elle. I love them. They were so fun. That was my favorite. I do think I probably like the first season a little bit better, but I did enjoy this. I would probably give it like out of we do 5 crowns. I would
Okay.
probably give it like four crowns.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll probably say like maybe a 4.5 crowns out of 5. I
Yeah.
really liked it.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it still being wholesome too, because I think that's another thing with why it works for me is the wholesome is genuine, and it's just so different than most teen shows. Like most of these teen shows like Euphoria and all of
Oh, yeah.
even the ABC Family, a lot of them are, they're like scandalous, like
Well,
they're
and
always like scandal. They're old, they're super sexual.
yeah.
And in this show, yeah, we have like literal kissing montages. There's lots of kissing this season, and even a hickey, but we start to touch on like going further, and it's so refreshing to see like two teen characters both be like, oh, no, no, I'm not ready for it.
Yeah.
They're like
That was
even
good.
scared to talk about it. They're like, no, 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 not yet. We'll get there
Yeah.
when we get there, but
Yeah.
let's just kiss for now because that's
Yeah.
fun. Who
Yeah,
told
I like
that?
that too. I liked that too. And thank goodness we can have a teen drama where there isn't a teacher student relationship, because almost all of them, even I think Dawson's Creek is super well done. Even that it has it. Like I covered Grease, Rise of the Pink Ladies. There's one in there. I hate that so much. And it's
don't
the
do
worst.
it, girl.
So thank you for not including that Heartstopper crew. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's because I hate that so much. But no, it's a really good show. And so if you're listening, let us know what you think of this show and what you think of the different pairings, the different plot lines that we talked about. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section or on Twitter. And so where can people follow you on social media, your content, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, so if you want to see my live reactions, my in-person shock to the popcorn bucket and all, you can check out my reactions over on YouTube at Chili Boy Productions, as well as Instagram Chili Boy Productions, and over on Twitter at Chili Boy YT.
Great. We'll have that all then in the description. You can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure that you're following the podcast at Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That helps us so much. 5 stars. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Most of our viewers are not subscribers. So if you're in that camp, please subscribe. It really helps us. And we also have the Patreon group, which is a ton of fun, and the merch store. You can get all kinds of Hallmark and romance inspired merch. Check that out. And thanks so much. This was a lot of fun. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.